The book of Hebrews is one of the most unique and carefully crafted books of all the New Testament. It contains both great revelation and great application. I love what the author says about his own work at the end of the book. He calls it a word of encouragement. So be encouraged as you read through the book of Hebrews. Now, the most prevalent question that's asked is, who wrote the book of Hebrews? And there have been many theories advanced. Some believe it was Paul, others Barnabas, the son of encouragement. Others suggest even Apollos or Priscilla. But really, none of their biographies, their stories, or their style really match what we find in the book. This leads us to agree with Origen. Origen was a 3rd century AD church father. He studied the history of this book, and he concluded as to who wrote the book of Hebrews, only God knows. So we'll leave it at that. But it doesn't mean we don't know some critical facts about the author. First, we know he was a Jewish Christian speaking to other Jewish Christians, hence the name of the book, Hebrews. Second, we know that he relied heavily upon eyewitness testimony to the ministry and resurrection of Jesus. This would have put him about 30 years after the resurrection. And third, we know he wrote the book during a period of severe persecution, which most scholars believe was the last 4 years of the evil Roman Emperor Nero. For example, he set allegedly the whole city of Rome on fire only so he could blame the Christians and kill them for their faith. Now, it was against this backdrop of persecution that we get an understanding of the book. You see, these Jewish Christians were beginning to be discouraged with their faith. They were wondering, is this Christianity thing really worth it? You see, their hearts wanted to return to their old Jewish way of life. But our author sees this, and so he calls it out, and he calls them up to something better. He points them to the superiority of Jesus. In fact, I love how the author uses the word better 11 different times in the book. He always referred to Jesus and said, because of Jesus, we have a better salvation, we have a better hope, we have a better citizenship, and a better resurrection. In other words, everything is better in Jesus. And that brings us to the outline of the book. I mentioned that it's a well-crafted book, and we see that in the 3 sections of its outline. First, he talks about the superiority of Christ's person. Then he moves to the superiority of Christ's ministry. And finally, he wraps it up with the superiority of our Christian privileges of being in Christ. So in chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 4, verse 13, we have the superiority of Christ's person. He's better than the prophets. He's better than the angels. He's even better than Moses. And he wraps this section up by saying, let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Well, what rest is he talking about? The Sabbath rest that only comes in Jesus, that place of safety and peace and freedom. Next, in chapter 4, verse 14, through chapter 10, verse 18, we have the superiority of Christ's ministry. You see, Jesus is superior in that he's a better high priest. He's a better king of peace. The King Melchizedek, Jesus is superior to him. Jesus is a better tabernacle. He's even a better sacrifice, a once and for all sacrifice. And so because of this finished work, the author says, Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we might receive mercy and find grace in our time of need, even a time of persecution. And finally, the last section begins in chapter 10, verse 19, through the end of the book. And here he talks about the superior Christian privileges we have to enjoy in Jesus. We have a superior faith, a confident expectation in the goodness of God. We have a superior family, brothers and sisters who will spur us on to love and good deeds. And we have a superior leaders who genuinely care for our well-being. So to wrap it all up, I believe the big idea of the whole book of Hebrews is found in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. You see, the author is reminding his audience that the Christian life is like a race, and it's more like a marathon than it is a sprint. It takes endurance. It takes perseverance. So this is where he says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. How? By fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. I love that. Some translations use the author and finisher of our faith, but I like this one. Jesus is the pioneer. He goes first. He goes before us. And Jesus is the perfecter. He has finished his race so we can finish ours. So this book is meant to encourage us that when we run the race that's marked out for us, that we too would run with endurance. How? By fixing our eyes on Jesus. Because Jesus is better than anything else.